Understanding the content network. This is also a huge part of AdWords and something that we have not talked about so far. Essentially what this means is that we've been talking specifically about getting search engine results, but I mentioned earlier that lots of websites out there advertise AdWords ads right on their site, and we can bid specifically on those ads. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go in here and create a new campaign. I'm just going to go campaign summary. I'm going to create a new campaign, and I'm going to start with placements. What this means is I'm specifically going to look at having my ads appear on web pages. So, I'll call this dog training placement. Of course, call it whatever you want. And I'm going to call my ad group, I'll just call it ad group 1, I guess. Again, I'm going to target English. Locations, let's pretend that I took the time to, to add the specific locations. I'm also going to go ahead and use the same ad just for simplicity's sake to get to the next step. And now, rather than bidding on specific keywords, I'm going to have an option to go out and find specific websites, which is really cool. Let me show you how this works. Okay, there's my ad. Looks good. Okay, now Google is going to help me search the websites out there that display Google Ads and find ones that are going to work for me. There's a couple different ways you can do this. You can just go through and manually browse them, or you can enter the keyword phrase. I think it's a lot easier to do this. I'm going to type in dog training and hit get available placements. It's going to go out and search for what it deems to be sites that are related. Okay, it's going to go ahead and list the sites. It's also going to give me a general idea of how many impressions these sites get per day. As you can see here, there are some huge performers here. Oodle.com, over 500,000 impressions a day. Wow, that would be a lot of ad impressions, wouldn't it? As you can see here, a lot of sites came up. Now, it's important to understand that this is what Google deemed to be related to my keyword phrase. It doesn't mean that it is. So what I would suggest you do is go through and visit these sites individually and see if you think it is. Let's take a look here. Okay. Virtual bark. Let's make this bigger here. Of course, dogs are big on the internet. What I want to do is go through here and see if I can find where this site is displaying ads. Sometimes you're going to find that it's in a really cool place, and sometimes they're going to be buried in the site. That's also important to keep in mind. Okay, puppyfinder.com. Apparently, this is a resource for finding and raising a puppy. So, in other words, somebody comes to this site, and a puppy is good because puppy means that the dog has not been trained yet, most likely, and oftentimes people want to learn how to train them. So, and we all know that puppies love to chew on stuff, and that's can be trouble. So let's scroll down here. You can see there are some ads. So what we could do is we could say we want our dog training ad to appear right here on this site. So you know what, that looks relevant. So I can go ahead and add that. I'm just going to go ahead and for the sake of things, add some more. And then we'll go ahead and hit continue. As you can imagine, this can be time consuming, but it can be very valuable because it's a great way to get targeted ads. It's also a great way to look at sites that would not be targeted and really weed those out. Okay, now I have a chance to do something a bit unique and a bit different than how we did our other campaigns, and that is to choose a pricing method. Essentially what we can do is just pay per click like we did in the other one, but we also have the option to pay per 1,000 impressions, which means that regardless of how many clicks we get, we're going to pay one price. This can be really good, it can be really bad. Let me give an example of where it would be really bad. What would be if your ad was being showed on a forum where people are going to be coming in there tons and tons of times per day, and not necessarily looking at your ads every day, or maybe even they'll look at it once but not look at it again the 5 other times that they see it in the thread. So that could be a bad time that you would not want to pay per 1,000 impressions. However, It can also be a way to save a lot of money because you're going to find that you can get 1,000 impressions for pretty low, where you could be actually looking at, as long as you can get a decent amount of clicks in that 1,000, you're actually going to be paying technically only a couple pennies per click. So keep that in mind and choose whichever one you want to do. And once you select that, you can enter your budget. And I'm just going to go ahead and say I'd be willing to spend $50 a day, and just again, this is just arbitrary. One thing with this is it can really get out of control fast, so I'm going to encourage you to be careful. Also, some people suggest entering a high daily budget, and I disagree with that because I do not want to see people lose their shirt just experimenting. Also, your maximum cost per click, I tend to have it be a lot lower when pursuing this avenue. And then it's going to go ahead and it's going to create this, and also you have the option to look and see how likely it is that your placements are actually going to go live, which I think is pretty cool. Now, one thing that's important to understand with all this is that whenever you create a campaign on the search network, it's going to go live almost immediately. However, on the content network, which was what we just did, where you're actually going to have your ads on other people's sites, it can take a couple days for your stuff to go live. So it's frustrating because you sit down and you create an ad, you want to see if you're going to make some money, and even though the content network is very powerful, it stinks because there's that delay. But just keep that in mind so you're not disappointed. One other thing I wanted to point out to you was, if we go back to our first campaign here, $5,000 a day budget, I need to change that. You will see that this campaign was automatically also enrolled in the content network, which means that Google's going to go out and it's going to run this ad for me in the content network, which is just, generally speaking, websites out there that it feels are related to these keyword phrases. Now, what I just showed you was a specific way to go ahead and bid on specific websites, and that's how I prefer to do things. In fact, I would recommend going in here and turning the content network off, because it can be a way to get a lot of untargeted clicks. So just be wary of that. But the content network can also be accessed from the regular search settings here that we have. So keep that in mind. So again, the content network can be a literal gold mine. You'll find tutorials dedicated specifically to the content network and placement targeting, and something worth considering. If your head's spinning around and around because you're confused, don't worry about the content network. Just kind of let it go, push it off to the side, and focus on the typical pay-per-click, because it's the easiest to understand and easier to get a hold of. But the placement targeting can be really powerful, especially once you have a better handle on what you're doing.